The following episode you are about to experience was recorded live over YouTube and adapted for ultimate playback quality. Welcome to the world of MarketTalk with Tom Dunkins, where we explore the in-depth topics of business, branding, marketing, investing, and much more. The MarketTalk podcast is a production of Team TMS. Episodes are available on YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, hello everybody and welcome to the first installment of the MarketTalk podcast with Tom Dunkins. I am Tom Dunkins and welcome everybody. So this is going to be a bit of an adventure, this podcast. I honestly don't even know what I've gotten myself into, but so this is the first episode and this is going to be a very, very interesting experience, guys. So basically, what this episode will cover is basically we're first going to just go over what a podcast actually is and what this podcast is going to be all about, basically. And basically after that, we are going to be exploring the world of radio, guys. So talkback radio and how podcasting has sort of, taken over the radio industry and how the radio industry is sort of declining. Or is it? We will soon find out in this episode, guys. So, yes, this is very different to what I usually do because, as you guys know from my previous videos on Team TMS, all of the videos were very highly edited, very highly sort of chopped up and all that. But whereas these podcast episodes are just going to be completely unedited, it's just going to be me sitting down in front of a camera for God knows how long. I don't know how long this episode's going to be, like maybe 30 minutes, maybe even an hour, over an hour possibly, who knows, guys. But let's just, let's see, guys. Let's see how this podcast turns out. But yeah, so basically, this is the Team TMS MarketTalk podcast, and in this podcast, we are basically going to be exploring the world of business, branding, marketing, and investing, guys. And we may even be looking into a few current affairs from time to time. Who knows, guys? We really just don't know where this podcast is going to go, but let's just see. I'm very, very new to this whole podcast format, guys. But let's just see. But yeah, so I really don't know. We might have some like segments in a few videos, like just in some segments we might explore like logo designs, sort of branding designs for individual companies, sort of things. So for example, in one video, or episode I should say, we may look into like the history of the Microsoft brand and maybe the Apple brand, NVIDIA, I don't know, guys. Just any business, we're just going to be looking into them, looking at their branding history, I don't know, guys. So that is basically going to be one segment there. What's another segment we might do? We might look into like startup companies, guys, like just random startup companies I sort of find on the internet. So maybe, I don't know if it's all going to be New Zealand businesses. I might try to find some American startups too. I'll just try to find some like startup businesses kind of thing, guys. So we'll just see, guys. We'll see where the road takes us. But yeah, so without further ado, what else is there to discuss about this podcast, guys? Obviously, I'm actually live right now over YouTube, so the way I'm going to be doing this podcast is a little bit different from the usual podcast sort of format, but basically every single episode is going to be filmed live over YouTube, so it's going to be live streamed on YouTube, and basically, I'll take the recordings from the live streams and just adapt them for playback quality. So I'll probably upload it to like Spotify and iHeartRadio and all that. Probably re-upload it to YouTube. There may be a few things I need to chop up, like I need to add the intro and all that kind of thing. But it's still going to be as sort of podcasty as possible. Like I'm not going to edit it too much. So that is basically the formula of the podcast. I might try to get a few special guests on every now and then, because it just gets boring with just one person talking the whole time, guys. I mean, it's just going to be me, you, and a whole buttload of time, guys. That's basically what a podcast is. I doubt that these episodes are going to go over like 3 hours like Joe Rogan sort of does, because, I mean, most episodes it will just be me talking about, like, business sort of stuff, and I do want to keep my audience for the entire, range of the whole time, basically, guys. So, yeah, I don't know how long these episodes are going to be. Most of them are going to be pretty different, like maybe some will be 30 minutes, some will be over an hour, who knows, but I'll try to make them less than 3 hours, because I just find that I lose interest after like 3 hours of listening to Joe Rogan and that kind of thing. But yeah, I'll just try and find some sort of local, maybe some graphic designers or startup business owners. By the way, I actually am a startup business CEO or managing director or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I won't be going into too much about my own business. I won't reveal what my business name actually is, because I don't want to get doxxed or anything like that. And as I explained in the podcast announcement video, I don't really want to be colliding the two worlds of like Team TMS and the business, because you guys know what happens when worlds collide. There's just going to be a big explosion, and nobody wants that, guys. Nobody wants worlds to collide. So we are going to be keeping my business and MarketTalk separate, but I will be, giving some, hints about how to, manage a business and that kind of thing in the podcast. So I won't be keeping it completely private, but just sort of what the business name is and what I'm actually doing. I don't want to be, exposing that too much. But basically what my business is it's just a graphic design sort of marketing, branding business in New Zealand, and that's basically all I'm going to be saying for now. I don't want to be doxing my business. So, but yeah, I do have experience with owning and starting up a business, guys, so I'm not completely clueless as to how businesses actually run. I do know how to run a business, guys, but obviously I'm not like a massive sort of CEO, corporate bastard type person. What I could possibly do in the future is possibly get one of my lecturers to join the podcast, guys, because as you may know, I currently attend university. I'm studying marketing at Waikato University in New Zealand, obviously. So I could possibly get one of my lecturers or tutors or anything like that to join the podcast someday, get some insight into the world of marketing or business or, I don't know, accounting even, who knows, digital business. Because, yeah, some of my lecturers just have a lot of very interesting things to say. So there are a lot of potential special guests I could have on this podcast. If you guys have any suggestions, or if you yourself want to be on this podcast someday, just let me know in the comments or the chat if you're listening live. And yes, so basically the reason that I'm actually doing live streams is for the engagement of other people, guys, really. Because like I said before, when it's just me talking the whole time, it just gets a bit, just a bit boring, just one guy talking into a mic the whole time. So when people are actually talking into the live chat and I'm actually getting some engagement, it does make it a bit more interesting, I guess. So for those of you who are listening on Spotify or iHeartRadio, just listening to the playback, feel free to join the live streams so that you can actually communicate with me. There's not really going to be any sort of schedule as to when the live streams will be. Maybe on like the Monday prior to the Wednesday of the playbacks being uploaded, because the playbacks will be uploaded on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. EST. So I don't know what that would even be in New Zealand time, probably like midnight sometime. But yeah, so basically Wednesdays is when the playback podcast episodes are going to be released, and yeah, so this is Market Talk, guys. Possibly in the future, I might sort of implement some sort of like callback system, like talkback system, where you can join the Discord server and just join the video calls and whatever, so I can actually communicate with my audience once we actually start to get some viewers at sort of listening to Market Talk, because as we speak on the live stream, I have got 0 concurrent viewers right now, guys. So no one's actually listening to Market Talk at the moment. So for those of you who are listening to the playback, hi, I'm Tom Dunkins. There we go. And I love porridge. Just wanted to chuck that in there, guys. I think I've basically talked enough about Market Talk. There is a bit more information in the announcement video on the TMTMS YouTube channel, so go check that out if you haven't already. And this is just going to be a journey with me, you, and a whole lot of time, guys. Every week, every Wednesday, I'm going to be here. So just stay with me, guys. It's going to get more interesting over time. So yeah, hopefully we start to get somewhat of a formula, like I said, with the segments, like with the branding explorations of businesses and startup business explorations and that kind of thing. I don't know, guys. We'll see where the road takes us. So what is a podcast, guys? What actually is a podcast? Because I'm very new to this whole podcasting world. I've just done some research, and apparently a podcast is a program made available in digital format for download over the internet. So I should be reaching you, fellow international viewers, through wires that travel beneath the ocean right now, guys, through a network of wires underneath the ocean. Typically, a podcast is an episodic series of digital audio files that users can download to a personal device or stream to listen to at a time of their choosing. So yeah, this is basically a digital audio file that you guys are listening to from your computer device or mobile telecommunication device. So there you go. Now you guys know the definition of a podcast. So it's good to be here on your screen, on your mobile device. I doubt that anyone's going to be listening to this on their computer, because who listens to podcasts on their computers these days, guys? I don't think anybody does. I'm not sure what you're doing while you're listening to me, while you're listening to this podcast, because for me personally, whenever I listen to podcasts, I'm usually at the gym or sort of doing yard work and that kind of thing. So I don't know where you guys are currently listening to me. Let me know in the comments, guys. Are you driving in the car? Are you at the gym? Are you doing yard work? Are you just sitting, staring into the distance, not really doing anything? Let me know, because usually when I'm listening to like the radio or the podcast and that kind of thing, I'm usually actually doing something else. I'm not, my entire sort of time isn't dedicated to listening to a podcast, if that makes sense.
Dunkins.
All right, so that basically clears that up, guys. So without further ado, I think we are going to go ahead and start exploring the world of radio, guys, the radio industry. So before I actually get into that, I do want to mention I do have somewhat of an experience with podcasting, guys. I did lie to you. I'm not going to lie to you anymore, guys. I have been on a podcast by the name of The James Rambling Show. And what I kind of want to do with you guys is just do a bit of time traveling, guys. So we are going to time travel back to January 2022, guys. So are you guys ready to do a bit of time traveling? I want you guys to just look into my eyes right now. If you guys are watching the video version of this podcast, just look into my eyes. If you're listening to the playback, just look into the icon on your screen at my eyes. Okay, so here we go, guys. Look into my eyes. Okay, so we have now been teleported, or time travelled, I should say, back to January 2022. So we are now in 2022 and we are on the James Rambling Show, guys. This is the first podcast, or the only podcast I've ever been on, I should say. And so I've been on the James Rambling Show 3 times. This is the first time right here, so let's just go ahead and listen to what I had to say.
So what was the initial drive of this channel, or what made it make it start?
Okay, well,
So.
if you're expecting me to do some sobby little inspirational quote sort of thing, well, that never happened, alright. So, what happened is, you know old Pooey Bag and Sellotape Man, you know them, right?
Yes, so I do.
Yeah, well, basically what happened was, I was at their house, and I was on Mr. Sellotape Man's computer, just playing a bit of Minecraft. And then I saw that he had a webcam on the desk, and I was sort of thinking, why don't I make a YouTube video with that webcam? And so what I did was I downloaded all the editing software, record.
So yeah, that is basically the first episode, first podcast episode I've ever been on, and I know my voice is very different. It might have been a bit hard for you guys to even realise that there was me there, but yeah, so that was the first podcast episode I've ever been on. I have been on the James Rambling Show 3 times. The first time was just me talking about how I started the channel, and it was more of an interview sort of format. The second episode was me basically just exploring the world of sitcoms and talking about my favourite sitcoms and all that kind of thing. The third episode, I believe, was me telling some stories about my LA adventures and my trip to LA and getting lost in a subway and that kind of thing. So yeah, I've been on 3 podcast episodes so far, guys. So I just kind of wanted to mention that. So I do have some experience with podcasts, guys. But anyway, now that that is out of the way, I thought we could now go ahead and explore the world of the radio industry. So, radio, guys. Yes, the radio industry. Whether you like it, hate it, or don't really care so much about it, it is here and it is here to stay. So, is the radio industry dying? Is the podcast industry taking over the radio industry? Let's find out. So, trusty Gemini, I've just done a quick little Google search here. I've just searched, is radio dying? Traditional FM radio stations are declining, but radio is not dead and has evolved in new ways. That's a trusty little answer from Gemini, and as you guys know, you can always trust AI, guys. AI is never wrong. But basically, I just want to mention the whole point of this podcast is I'm going to be learning everything at the same time as you guys, basically. So I don't really know much about the podcast industry per se at the moment. So basically everything I'm going to be exploring in this podcast, I'm going to be learning at the same time as you, really. So I'm only just doing some research now, and basically, you would expect that radio would be dying with the introduction of podcasts, because with podcasts, basically you can just listen to anything you want at the time that you want to be listening to it. So if you're in a sort of a true crimey sort of mood, you want to listen to a bit of true crime sort of stories and that kind of thing, well, just chuck on a true crime podcast. If you want to be listening to current affairs, well, go and listen to Joe Rogan and his interviews. If you want to just be listening to, I don't know, a space podcast, astronomy sort of thing, go chuck on a space podcast. It's always at your fingertips, guys. It's on demand, I should say. Whereas with a radio, like whatever's on the radio, you're just going to have to deal with, really. Whatever music's playing, you're just going to have to listen to it, guys. Just suck it up and listen to whatever's playing on the radio, really. But at the same time, radios are a lot more convenient, because when you're like driving, for example, and you're in the car, you just want to be turning on the car, you want to start driving and just listen to whatever's playing, really, guys. You don't really want to be sort of going through your Spotify or iHeartRadio or whatever and just, selecting all these individual songs and podcasts. You just want to be like, you just want to start driving in your car and not have to worry about going on your phone and selecting songs and playlists and that kind of thing. So radio can be a lot more convenient, and it's not just when you're driving. You might just want to be in your room and might just be working or something, getting a bit of work done, and you just want to turn on the radio and listen to whatever's playing. So in that regard, radio can be a lot more convenient. Me personally, the only time that I ever listen to the radio is when I'm driving. I don't really have the radio on while I'm working or anything like that, because it's just, like I said, it's just way more convenient, really. But in the world of podcasts, the main time that I listen to podcasts is while I'm working out at the gym, really. Sometimes I do listen to podcasts while I'm sort of doing a bit of yard work and that kind of thing. Other times I just chuck on some Spotify. I've got a playlist on Spotify that I just listen to every now and then. Sometimes when I'm going on like long road trips, I'll check on Spotify onto the Bluetooth in my car. But for most of the time, I just have it on the radio when I'm like going back and forth from work and university and that kind of thing. So both have their pros and cons, really. But the main sort of podcasts that I listen to are sort of Joe Rogan. I also listen to the History of Curb Your Enthusiasm podcast, which is a bit random, but once you sort of form an attachment to the host of the podcast, it's sort of hard to let go, really. Like, the podcast I'm listening to, The History of Curb Your Enthusiasm with Jeff Garlin and Susie Essman, while it is a bit of a random thing to listen to, like The History of Curb Your Enthusiasm, the hosts of that podcast are both just really interesting people. They're actually the stars of Curb Your Enthusiasm, Jeff and Susie, and they're just really good people, and I just really enjoy the podcast, so I just listen to it every time I'm at the gym. Sometimes I'll listen to the Joe Rogan podcast, sometimes Theo Von. I have also been listening to the Ron Burgundy podcast with Will Ferrell. That's also a very entertaining podcast, just to fill the time, I guess. And so in terms of radio, sometimes I listen to like News Talk ZB. That's sort of, for those of you international viewers, that you American Yankees, News Talk ZB is basically just like a New Zealand sort of talkback radio show. So they basically just go over current affairs around the world and that kind of thing, and it's just good to get your daily dose of news, really. But yeah, so that is basically what I listen to in my spare time. But is the radio industry dying? Well, no, not really, guys. With the rise of online stations, online stations have made music more accessible and changed how people listen. And internet radio, guys, with iHeartRadio, people can create their own internet radio stations to play music or talk radio. Blah, blah, blah. For those of you who haven't realised, I'm just reading what's on the screen here from old trusty Gemini. Let's just see here. Average daily time spent listening to radio per adult in the United States. Okay, so the average person, I just want to quickly show you guys this. The average person at the moment actually spends 99 minutes daily with radio content. That is very interesting. So the average person in America does listen to the radio, so it is still a very prevalent thing in the daily American lives, the average American lives, really. So 99 minutes, that is actually a lot more than I was expecting. So radio is still here, and it's still here to stay, guys. It's always going to be here from the looks of things. But what is the radio, guys? Radio is the technology of communicating using radio waves. So the radio is obviously very different, technologically speaking, to podcasts, guys, because they actually use radio waves from like telephone poles and that kind of thing. I don't even know. Radio waves are electromagnetic waves of frequency between 3 Hz and 300 gigahertz. They are generated by an electronic device called the transmitter. That's what I was thinking there, transmitters, connected to an antenna which radiates oscillating electrical energy, often characterized as a wave. Basically radio can be, what's the word I'm thinking of? Like wireless, guys, so you can have wireless radio, whereas podcast is over the internet sort of thing. So you need to download podcasts, whereas radio is just sort of an instant thing. I mean, radio has been around since how long? Like at least since, I don't know, last 2 centuries ago, I would say. Since the 1800s, it was mostly used in military operations, and then it was sort of commercialized over time for commercial use, and then they started putting advertisements on it to actually start making a bit of profit. So yeah, that is basically what the radio is, guys. So in terms of radio stations in New Zealand, I'm just going to quickly show you guys my screen for you YouTube viewers out there. So basically in New Zealand we have quite a few radio stations, really. We've got News Talk ZB, which is actually the most popular or most listened to radio station in New Zealand, and it's what I always listen to when I'm listening to the radio. It's what I've got on in my car all the time. Sometimes I will listen to The Sound, guys. The Sound is sort of a 80s, 70s sort of music radio station, very old school, very rock and roll. So yeah, I do like The Sound. The Sound is probably my second favourite radio station. We've got Magic FM. I don't even know what Magic FM is. I think it's like new modern music. I'm not really a big fan of new music, guys. Maybe in the future we might do a music episode on this podcast, guys, exploring the music industry and how Spotify has changed the music industry with on-demand sort of, listening sort of thing, as opposed to like cassette tapes and CDs and all that kind of thing, like streaming these days and how it's affected the music landscape. We might do an episode like that later on in the future, guys. Let me know in the comments if you guys want that. But anyway, so we've also got RNZ National, which is another talkback radio station. For those of you who don't know what talkback is, it's basically just talk radio. So like they've got these hosts that interview people and go like talk about current affairs and that kind of thing. So that's basically our two main talkback radio stations, News Talk ZB and RNZ National. We've also got The Breeze, which I heard is actually the second most listened to radio station in New Zealand, and they sort of just do new music sort of thing. We've got More FM, which is the same sort of thing, just new music. We've got the Rock FM, which is pretty self-explanatory, just rock and roll, old school sort of music. Coast FM, George FM, My FM, The Edge, The Hits, Radio Hauriki. Hauriki is another good one, I must say, very popular. Good hosts on that show. They've got Lee Hart on there, which is a very famous New Zealand comedian. So Radio Hauriki. ZM, Flavour FM, RNZ Concert. I think you guys basically get the deal. So I've got quite the selection of radio stations here in New Zealand. So yeah, let's just go ahead and head back to the face cam here. I think that is basically everything I had to cover about the New Zealand radio landscape. So the final question is radio really declining, guys? How is radio looking? Well, as we've already been over, well, it's definitely better now that we can actually have on-demand sort of podcast listening and music listening with streaming and all that kind of thing. Radio is just a lot more convenient, guys, because as we went over before, when you start driving, you just want to turn on your car and just listen to whatever's playing, guys. So it's just a whole hassle having to go on your phone and just go into Spotify and, look at whatever songs you want to listen to and that kind of thing. It's just a whole hassle, guys. Nobody wants that. So podcasts and radio definitely have their pros and cons, guys. It's basically all I have to say about the radio industry. But for those of you who have any queries or comments you want to mention, just go ahead and type it in the live chat. I'll be very interested to know, because that is basically everything that I had to cover in this episode so far. It's been the first episode of Market Talk with Tom Dunkins. It's definitely been a bit of a random episode, just talking about like the radio industry, because I'm not really too interested in the radio industry. There's not really that much for me to talk about, so it was a bit of a random thing, but I just thought, what is a good first episode topic to talk about? And I just thought about the radio because it's similar to podcasting. Really, I wasn't just going to, do a whole big episode about, Microsoft branding or anything like that. I just thought it would be a good little first topic just to kick off the Market Talk podcast. And, so that's basically the radio industry, guys. We've been going on for 35 minutes so far, guys. So yeah, that is. I don't really know how long these episodes are going to be going on for. Like I said, some may go on for like an hour if it's something that actually interests me. But radio doesn't really interest me that much. So it's going to be a bit of a shorter episode today. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this first ever podcast episode here on Market Talk. It's definitely been an interesting one, guys. Don't really know what else to add. So that is basically, I think, just looking at my notes here, what else was I meant to mention? Just let me know down in the comments, guys, where you're actually listening to this podcast, whether you're, working out at the gym or just, staring into space, just listening to this podcast, not really doing anything else. Just let me know, guys. I will not be adding any ads to this podcast, guys, because that's another downside to radio listening. I have to mention, guys, whenever I'm listening to like News Talk ZB and that kind of thing, there are just so many ads. Like the hosts sort of talk for about 5 minutes, and then they just have another 5 minute like ad break. Like, I don't know how it is in America or wherever you're listening, guys, but in New Zealand we have a serious ad problem with the radio. Like, after a while of listening to the radio, I just think, oh, I cannot be listening to these ads anymore, because it's just the same commercials over and over again. So that's definitely another downside to the radio industry. But here on Market Talk, I'm not really going to be adding any sort of sponsors or advertisements or anything like that. Even if I could, I probably wouldn't, guys, because the main reason that I actually do this podcast or do YouTube at all isn't because I'm making any money off it. I'm not making any money at all. I've not made a cent on YouTube so far. The whole reason that I'm doing any of this podcast or YouTube stuff is simply just because I enjoy it, really. It's just a satisfying thing to do. I just enjoy doing YouTube. I enjoy looking back at these episodes and that kind of thing, and yeah, it's just a good thing to get into, guys. I'm just using my creative abilities, and that's basically what it comes down to, guys. So it's nothing to do with the money. If it was to do with the money, I would have like thousands, well, I wouldn't say thousands of subscribers yet. I was hoping last year to get to 1,000 subscribers, but it never happened, guys. I would be lying if I didn't want more views. I mean, what's the point in actually even doing videos if I'm not even getting any views at all? So obviously I do want to grow my channel, but for now, money isn't the main thing of the channel. It's just enjoying what I'm doing, and that's why I started this Market Talk podcast, guys, because I'm interested in business and marketing and branding and that kind of thing, so I just want a platform to talk about it, guys. So that's basically it, and I'm sure we will have a lot more interesting adventures in the future. And that is basically it for the first episode, and without further ado, don't forget to like, subscribe, or whatever you do on Spotify. I don't know how Spotify works, whether you can actually like follow creators or anything. I don't know. I'm very new to this whole podcasting thing. It's going to be a learning experience as we go on. But just make sure you share the podcast, guys, because we do, as I said before, we do want some viewers here. It would be a bit sad if I was just, sitting in front of a camera just basically talking to myself. So we do want some viewers, so share the podcast, guys. That is basically the first episode, the radio industry, whatnot. So, so I guess I'll see you guys next week for the next edition of the Market Talk podcast, and peace out, I guess, guys. So how do I actually... Oh, here we are. Ending.
Market Talk is a production of Team TMS. For more episodes of Market Talk just like this one, visit us on YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for listening.